Midlands, of course, it's our manor. The rest of the country, and sometimes around the rest of the world. For example, Belarus, because police there have now detained two senior opposition figures a day after more than 100,000 people protested against the president Alexander Lukashenko. And the pair were picked up outside the Minsk tractor factory, staff there involved in an anti-strike against the president. The arrests coming as tensions remaining high in the capital and other areas, widespread anger over Lukashenko's landslide re-election, which happened on the 9th of August. The opposition and a lot of governments have denounced the election as fraudulent. Let's just get a word with Professor Elena Korosteleva, who's Professor of International Politics at Kent University, an expert on Belarusian politics. Elena, evening to you.
Hello. Hi.
Welcome to the show. Can we just start with the background here and why people are so angry in Belarus? And these protests are not going away, are they?
Absolutely not. Well, just imagine a small country which used to be rather prosperous, and it used to be, in comparative terms, when the Soviet Union fell apart, sort of on top of it was very stable, relatively secure, and it was seen as a kind of assembling factory of the entire Soviet Union with massive intellectual potential. So coming now to 2020, the country is impoverished. The current president has been abusing power for more than 26 years now. And what we see now, it's not only lies and fraudulent elections. What happened after, when people came out took it to the streets to protest, he amassed absolute force, violence. People were intimidated. 7,000 people were thrown into prisons. They were tortured, raped. A lot of people disappeared, and still, after two weeks of detention, no one can find their trace. So, of course, people would be protesting.
And tensions have been going on since the election or the re-election, this landslide for Lukashenko that a lot of people say is fraudulent. It
is alleged landslide, exactly.
Yeah. What about Russian involvement? What's Putin's stance? Because Belarus is pretty close by.
It is indeed. And Belarus and Russia, until recently, they were seen very much as allies. And you just can imagine that Belarus is a small country yet again. It's building a nuclear power station on the border with the European Union with Russian help and using Russian money. Russia and Belarus often hold military joint exercise on Belarusian territory. Belarus is also a transportation corridor between Europe and Asia, and more importantly as well, it is a main crude oil supplier from Russia to Europe. So, of course, Russia has interest in Belarus remaining stable. But at the same time, I think what Putin currently is doing, he has kind of adopted a wait-and-see attitude. Because after all, what has happened, he can see that Lukashenko has wasted his political legitimacy, his political capital. So the only way for him to retain his power is through force only. And Putin, I think, is casting his eye around in terms of what other potential contender who could be kind of relatively pro-Russian he could work with. And actually looking at their position, which is actually absolute majority of people in Belarus, there could be quite a few alternatives whom Putin potentially can work with.
Until recently, a lot of people might not have heard of Alexander Lukashenko, but you say he's been in power there for well over 20 years. So what's going to happen over the next few weeks, months, do you think?
It is difficult to say. Of course, by all means, it would be important to avoid the worst scenario, that is when the country can really descend into civil war. And as I said, it's a small country of 9 million people, but historically, every single major war actually started with Belarus being invaded, and that's what we don't want to happen. So we just hope that in the short term, first of all, there will be a strong international support and strong international message supporting Belarusian people in their struggle for freedom provided to the country, but also dialogue. Dialogue is a key here. Dialogue to be held between, obviously, with Belarus and Belarusian opposition, but also Putin. I think obviously Putin plays a critical role here, and we just hope that he will make the right decision that will not lead country into the abyss of civil war and potentially much wider war involving Europe and beyond.
Professor Elena Korosteleva, who's a Professor of International Politics at Kent University, an expert in Belarusian politics as well. Elena, thanks for joining us and explaining